Yeah.
But it's interesting. I don't know. Listen, what was I going to say? We're talking about the assassinations and well, I completely lost my train of thought.
Well,
Sorry,
that's okay.
folks. We'll
That's
keep
okay.
going. I'm sure it'll come back.
It'll come back.
The
yeah.
train has got to come around, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He'll hit the
Most
station
of them.
again.
Yeah, it'll hit the station again. Yeah.
But
You want to do a Chicago? Something a little bit closer. We already talked about.
no, I'm just talking.
air raid
It's interesting.
sirens.
We should go from, without even thinking about it, Kennedy to Lincoln. Because of.
It's a natural.
It's a parallel, sure.
Yeah, it's a parallel. Yeah, and we're still in the land of Lincoln. I mean, the street images, statues. They're all over the place.
Now, for years, my wife's from Western Kentucky. She said, "Let's go to Springfield sometime." And I said, "What's in Springfield? There's nothing to see in Springfield."
Yeah.
Well, eventually the kids were. Well, my Michelle was small, so Jen must have been maybe about a kindergartner almost. And we took a trip. My wife and the two girls, my mother. Tremendous thing to see down there. And when you go to the tomb and you realize he's there. It's just like takes your breath away.
Yeah.
Takes your breath away.
Yeah.
The closest thing I can think of that I had an experience like that in a non-religious situation was at the changing of the guard at Arlington National Center.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'll do it to you.
Yeah.
That'll bring tears to your eyes. And I remember what I was going to say.
Oh.
Talking about the assassinations and Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul. I never remember a more dramatic photo than when they show the Pope confronting his assassin. Remember saying hello and shaking his hand, greeting him, and it's just like this guy can't believe it, and it's like ultimate forgiveness, and it was nothing phony, nothing phony about that man for sure.
No, you know what? I wish all of us were like that. I was in communication, so I thought, I got to communicate with people.
I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah. And I never let anybody down. I never knock anybody, really. No matter what they've done. You owe me money. You said this, or or hey, don't you give them a chance. They'll come around. And I don't know if that's true in politics or not, but because you have the particularly now this. What's happening in Washington? They can't come to they can't agree on anything. There's gonna be some huge cuts. Speaking of in November, in a couple of days, Wednesday, isn't it?
They announced
the super committee is and they're not.
Milton Friedman from the University of Chicago, economist, passed away now, but he made a statement which was something along the lines of, take any three letters of the alphabet and you can find a federal bureau, agency, department that we do not absolutely need, has no real. And
he's probably right.
That's where it is. I mean, that's where it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you hear some of the ridiculous things that are only a drop in the bucket, like studies on cow flatulence effects on the
use of wood.
Yeah.
They've spent over $100 million in recent years on studies on the possible uses for wood.
Well, see, you can make things with it. You can burn it. What else can you do?
All you had to do is go to Home Depot and we got the wood over. What you got a 2x4?
I mean, okay, and like excessive regulations, like there was a man, he was of Japanese descent. I'll call him Japanese, American. Japanese descent. He was in California. This is a number of years ago. And the EPA came in and they cited him. He bought this land and he was going to plow it, but it was his own land now, his own farmland, but they didn't want him to do it because it might be the home of some rare kangaroo mouse, kangaroo mouse, kangaroo rat, whatever it was, might be habitat, might be destroying it. That was one, and there was another one. I remember hearing this on the radio. Someone had the idea. I think this was in New Jersey. Okay, the idea was, the anchovies. Instead of just having to get them out of the ocean, they would have these huge tanks in the warehouse, and they would farm them, actually raise them commercially. And what they would do is periodically they'd pump the old water out because it's polluted, whatever. Someone from the EPA says, you can't do that unless that water's purified. I mean, after all, you've got defecation in there from the anchovies. And they said, well, anchovies have been around for millions of years in the ocean.
Yeah.
They've been, no. Well, it's the end of that,
Yeah.
So, ridiculous. I mean, it's one thing to have regulation, but when you get, the peanut minds that are, running these things.
They're thinking of what would you say? They're not thinking of the common good.
They're not thinking at all.
They're not thinking at all. Yeah, they're thinking of regulation. That's part of the problem. Let's face it. All of us were in government one form or another. Who's the guy that says no on the telephone? It isn't the mayor. Or it isn't the governor. It's some low like. No, we don't do that. And don't bother us. In effect, In fact, I used to field calls, and people were saying, I got this, and they'd say, no, wait a second, and this is the fire department,
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm going to give you, here's the number you want to call, I'm going to try and transfer you, because you feel, and now you can't complain to anybody, all you get is recordings.
Or India.
Or India, yeah. I wonder where they're farming their stuff out to.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, what was the greatest thing before sliced bread was invented? By the way, So
I don't know.
But okay, we pretty much wrapped up Kennedy.
Well, we shot 2 presidents, so it's
through.
not bad.
We had 1 wounded.
Yeah.
And a Pope wounded.
Yeah.
What else?
We're doing.
We're just a bunch of violent Americans.
Well, you know what? Don't you feel that we are always in a revolutionary mood? I mean, look at Occupy Wall Street. Whether you like it or not, etc. We like to complain. We like to, we like to fight.
Right. It's a birthright, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we like to, and it's always going to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel.
Yeah, well, it should be.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be our country.
Yeah.
Remember that picture, the big lift about the Berlin airlift with Paul Douglas? And,
vaguely, I know of it. Yeah.
What's his name? Montgomery
Clift. Okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there's something in there. They're asking Paul Douglas is there, and some German is there. He says, "You know what I like about it? How much they don't like about it. They're always complaining. He's listening to what he's telling you about.
Oh.
He's in a barber shop, or wherever it is.
Yeah.
You got your right to say that. Now, in other countries, like if you're in Ireland during, say, 150 years ago or whatever, or less, and you were complaining, they would say you were talking treason and ship you off to Australia.
Sure.
So
yeah.
So I mean.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I know. Yeah. It's.
Or other places even worse.
It's we complain about it, but it's the one place, one country everybody wants to come to.
Yeah, right.
Even if it's only to visit. I gotta come here.
There wasn't a wall around West Berlin to prevent people from escaping to the east, was there?
Well, that's what I remember when Kennedy gave that speech. I think it was the speech he gave in Berlin. He said, "We may have our flaws, but we never had to put a wall up to keep people in."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Keep them out now.
Yeah, but
that's different. That's right. It was. I know when that happened. Father John Beretta, who's just passed away about 5 years ago, was one of the people I looked to my life for, shaped what I am and what the good things I become, and it was political. So, but he never said you should be this, that, or the other thing. Just put it out there, and you like Fox News, you decide. Well, anyway, he had said he was all in favor of knocking it down right away, and my scout leader, we're in Explorers at the time, Bill Boyd, I mentioned before, he said, I don't know, it kind of shows you who's free and who's
who is it? Yeah.
Shows you what's what there.
Yeah.
Kennedy had we were talking about John F. Kennedy, and the fact is he had a horrible first year, and he admitted that. He had the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Bay of Pigs, the failed invasion of Cuba, the Bay of Pigs, and that's followed up by Berlin, which there's kind of a general consensus that was not handled well either. And at the end of the year, a writer came to the president and said he wanted to write a book about his first year in office, and Kennedy said, "My God, why would anyone want to write a book about this year? This has been a horrible year." It's been. I mean, he recognized the fact, but the key thing is that Kennedy did learn. He learned and became a better president and did much better in his second and what remained of his third year in office. But his first year was not filled with success.
Well, I know it may be sacrilegious to even say this now, but there was some wondering, was he going to be reelected, or
Oh, sure. Yeah. After all, we tend to forget he was in Dallas because they were very much worried about Texas.
Right. It was political.
And with it, the whole South. There was a great political turmoil in Texas at that time. The Democratic Party was riven with factions. He was there to try to buck up the local the Democratic
using star
operation.
Power.
Yeah. That's why. That's why Lyndon is there with them because Lyndon had been in the background, but now they wanted to have the fact that that Lyndon Johnson was the vice president, kind of front and center there.
Yeah, and the governor Connolly, he was riding with them.
The conservative wing of the because the Texas Democratic Party had a liberal wing and a conservative wing, and they were at each other's throats.
Yeah, it was, and I know there was some talk that he and Barry Goldwater were actually pretty close friends.
They were
outside, and that they had planned if it had been come down to Goldwater the nomination and Kennedy, they were going to travel together, like whistle stopping places like that together. That would have been that would have set a good precedent for a president.
Yeah, sure.
Precedent for a president. There's a tongue twister for you.
Yeah, Goldwater wanted to run against John F. Kennedy. I mean, he was geared up for that. It was not his intention to run against Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, nothing to run. There's no record to run against her as such.
Speaking of that, these debates, they're not in the Republican. They're not debates at all.
They're like press conferences.
Yeah, exactly. And
multiple press conferences.
And they should be debating the president. And he should.
They'll get there.
They'll get there eventually. But you know what I mean.
It enables a candidate who doesn't have a great deal of money to stay in the race because they have all this free airtime. These debates are staged by the various television stations or organizations, and so you don't have to do anything other than show up. And so it's easy for all of these. Once they get into the real slugging it out in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, then you'll quickly see these campaigns coming to an end.
Right.
But for now, they can all stay there, even if they have 1 or 2%.
You have nothing to
lose.
The
polls,
right.
Doesn't cost
I could be out there, I suppose.
You could be. Yeah. Yeah, if your passport's in order.
Too much baggage.
Yeah.
Too much baggage. I mean, my body. But it's funny that we talk about debates like that, like Lincoln and Douglas. I mean, debates in those days are real debates, weren't they?
And that was a once in a lifetime experience. Lincoln and Douglas were running for the United States Senate. Mm-hmm. The people who listened to them couldn't vote for them, because the voters didn't elect United States senators. They could vote for their legislators, who in turn would elect
the states,
senators.
You know what? But I just read something that they did vote for because they said that Lincoln actually received the popular vote.
But it's in terms of the legislative vote. They were not on the ballot. They were not on the ballot.
Not on the ballot. So I know the legislature.
But if you add up the votes for the Republican candidates for the legislature, compared to then Lincoln did receive more popular votes. But because the way the state was gerrymandered and the way the districts were drawn, Douglas was reelected.
The reason being, the House of Representatives is the House that was designed to represent the people, and the Senate, the states.
Right.
So that's why that's the even number of people in the the Senate. When was that changed? Does anyone remember?
There was several changes. The income tax and the direct election of senators comes in with President Wilson. Comes in the teens.
13 or 14, something like that.
Income tax, wasn't it a temporary measure?
Oh yeah. Well, it was a constitutional amendment because the original Constitution did not allow for an income tax. So they had to amend the Constitution to get that, and you had that, and also the direct election of senators comes at the same time in the teens.
Yeah, so maybe prohibition wasn't the most ridiculous of them.
Prohibition was the last of the trio.
Yeah. What were the other ones?
I said the direct election of senators and the
I thought you meant women's suffrage.
No.
Just kidding, Dan. If you're listening,
that comes at the same time as well.
There,
and all those are amendments essentially during the Wilson administration, the tail end of Taft and the Wilson administration.
Now, was that Woodrow or O.W.?
Thomas Woodrow.
Thomas Woodrow.
Yeah. Actually, there were quite a number of few presidents that like Grover Cleveland or Calvin Coolidge or Woodrow Wilson. Those are their middle names. They're not their first names.
Stephen Grover Cleveland.
Yeah.
John Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah.
Well, he had Joyce Kilmer, the poet. That was a surname also. He had a first name before that, because someone says, "How can you have a guy named Joyce?"
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a middle name.
And, Nolan Ryan has a name before his Nolan also.
Is that right?
He's didn't run for anything. He was a pitcher, remember? President now president of the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, almost. Boy, with that one. Oh,
you talk about down to the last straw, huh?
Yeah, right. The Game 6. So.
Wonder what the odds against that happening were. Something like that.
That's what makes. That's why you watch sports.
That's right.
There's no or politics. Look at the way people go up and down in the popularity.
Right.
And or unpopular.
It's just like. So I mean, this is how many months away to begin with.
I know it's
so
yeah, it's a year. It's crazy. We should only. What is it in Britain, John? They only.
They call election. It's like maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Campaign. The Parliament dissolves, and there's an election to be held, and it's all over with.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We're going for they're raising money, and he wants to raise $1 billion or so. This is
But Kennedy, you have to have an exploratory committee to see if you're even going to do it. So.
Yeah.
Well, John F. Kennedy announced that he would be a candidate for President of the United States in 1960, I believe, in December of 1959, which would be the equivalent of somebody announcing next month that they're going to run for president next year.
Next year,
and yet all of these this has been all going on for all of 2011, and they were already talking about it in 2010.
Yeah, Romney's been running for 6 years.
So our whole time scale of presidential campaigns has shifted.
Yeah.
No more off season, huh?
No. And that's why I think it turns most people off.
Well, and I think the news media has something to do with it, because now you got there's so much news now. 24-hour news, cable channels, the expansion. There's news on from 4 in the afternoon until 6:30 in the evening on your regular station. Local news and world news and national news, and they're hungry for material. So they're even if these candidates hadn't announced, the news media is going to be speculating as to who's going to run or who might run or who ought to run.
Yeah,
that's right. They tell us, don't they?
Yeah,
who ought to be running or that plus. Our own communication to the internet.
Oh yeah,
information getting out there. Websites. People are now able to campaign and get their word out. Wasn't Howard Dean the first one to campaign successfully? Would really use the internet?
Yeah.
So
it's another, and you could not predict that. You could, I'm not into Twittering and all that, Facebook and all that, but it's out there, I think the overall
effect,
you say something, you do something, it can haunt you,
but the overall effect's going to be good. I think that you can get information like that. Trouble is, misinformation goes out too, obviously.
Yeah.
When William McKinley ran for president, he never left Marion, Ohio. He would give speeches on his front porch, and people would come. If you wanted to hear the candidate, you went to Marion, Ohio, and stood on his lawn, and he came out and gave a speech.
Yeah.
And that was his campaign.
Well, I'm getting a signal from our creator-producer, John DeVito, you heard before. He says, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to try to show you folks some of them products we have to offer. We're making this possible here today. I was trying to sound like Andy Griffith there.
Well, friends, how is the carpeting in your home? You need to replace your carpets in your living room, dining room, your den, your bedroom, or your family room? Well, the place to go is Carpet Warehouse, which is located at 4300 West Montrose Avenue in Chicago, or their new location that they just opened up in Highwood at 440 Sheridan Road. Yes, Carpet Warehouse has now 2 locations. In Chicago, it's at 4300 West Montrose Avenue, and our phone number is area code 773-283-0100, or in Highwood, you can call area code 847-266-1400. Again, Carpet Warehouse, or Carpet of Highland Park, is located for you to pick up a rug for your living room, your front room, your dining room, your den, your family room, your bedroom, or wherever you need a carpet. Go out and give them a call. That's the Carpet Warehouse. See Mike at 4300 West Montrose Avenue in Chicago at area code 773-283-0100, or Carpet of Highwood, which is located at 440 Sheridan Road. Go out and see Brian, and our phone number is area code 847-266-1400. If you need a new rug for your living room, your dining room, your den, your family room, or even your bedroom, give them a call. That's area code 847-266-1400. The Carpet of Highwood, located at 440 Sheridan Road in Highwood, or Carpet Warehouse, which is located at 4300 West Montrose Avenue in Chicago. The Chicago phone number is area code 773-283-0100, or in Highwood, 847-266-1400. If you need a carpet for your living room, your dining room, your den, family room, or your bedroom, give them a call and tell them that you heard it on Meet the Chicago Historians, and they'll take very, very good care of you. Carpet Warehouse or Carpet of Highwood, give them a call and they'll take very good care of you. And you're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, live and direct on the internet from the broadcast studios of John DeVita's recording studios in the northwest side of Chicago.
I saw a man, he danced with his wife in Chicago.
Dancing with his wife. See?
Chicago, my hometown.
Chicago.
Great city of Chicago.
Yeah,
and
Chicago.
And the many ethnic groups and the neighborhoods of the city of and to pray, what trees do you plant?
And what is it that keeps people apart? The inability to come together. Gentlemen, get it straight.
The police department is not there to create disorder. The police are here to preserve disorder.
Yeah. Remember channel WMAQ, or I think it was MAQ? Used to have their press conference on Sunday evening with Bill, what was his name, Bill? He's on BBM now, I think. But anyway, they would always start with that quote.
Yeah.
Recording of that famous quote with Richard J. Daley had made, if those of you are unaware what we're talking about, following some question about the, we had a convention here in 1968, I think, a Democratic National one, wasn't there?
Made all the papers.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was, and that's what he was addressing. He was telling them, remember, policeman's not here to create disorder. He's here to preserve disorder. Yeah. And, of course, when we do those things and record it, it goes on forever and ever, and that's what we're remembered of.
I want to correct myself so it doesn't go on. I said that McKinley was in Marion, Ohio. That, of course, that was Warren Harding, who was in Marion, Ohio. He also did a front porch campaign, but McKinley was Canton, Ohio. They're both Ohio presidents, and they both ran these front porch campaigns.
And they drive any Porsches or
no, just a front Porsche.
Horse and wagon in them days. Horse and buggy.
Right.
Of course, no, not.
Harding was the first president to drive to his inauguration in an automobile.
What kind?
Don't know. Don't honestly know.
Probably was a Pierce.
Was it a hybrid?
But it was before.
Is that right? Yeah.
Wilson was the last president to ride in a horse-drawn carriage.
Yeah. Wow.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So where were we before now? Oh, I was going to say, we're back from our break, folks, and back on the air, or at least back in cyber air, whatever that may be. What does it cyber come from? Cyberspace. Does anyone know where that term comes from? Or?
Well, it's either Greek or Latin. I'm not. I'm going to guess Greek.
Greek?
I guess Greek.
Yeah.
I mean, cyber.
Greek
Well, we're gonna look, that's our assignment for next time. We're going to
yeah.
what that was and what it's about. But anywho, we're moving on. We've talked about Kennedy and Lincoln and a few other subjects in between and connected. What about one that I don't think we'll have too much recollection of? John would have been about 2, and Pearl Harbor. Can you remember much about
Sure.
that happened?
Well, not too much, but I remember what I was doing that day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Sunday. It was a dull, overcast day. It was 3 days before my 9th birthday.
Okay.
And I was out playing and out in front of the house, and they said it was a dull, gray day, sort of cold out, maybe around freezing or so. And my parents came out and said something about Pearl Harbor was bombed. I never heard of Pearl Harbor.
You and a lot of people, right?
Yeah, never, and had really no idea what the impact would be. We're at war. We are at war, and I, just, but I can remember, they're telling me that. And in fact, we just covered quite a bit of Chicago's contribution to the war effort in our Chicago history class. And, it took a while to mobilize the country, but Chicago was as always, with our industrial might and population, was a real important part of the war effort. Yeah, absolutely. And everybody did with its scrap drives and paper drives and
With our location right on this inland sea we call the Great Lakes.
Yeah,
it was also big with. People don't think of it as being a port, but all the training that went on here.
Yeah.
Bush 41, for example, trained out here as a naval pilot.
Yeah, right.
For Great Lakes.
Yeah.
The Wolverine, I believe.
Wolverine and the Sable. And also that was at Navy Pier. That was part of it, the Great Lakes Naval Training Station at Fort Sheridan,
Mm-hmm.
And I even wound up, when I was drafted, I went to Fort Sheridan to get clothing, and assignments, etc.
No, we got we had the Naval Armory right over here for years, right on off of like Randolph and
Lake Michigan.
Was that Naval Reserve? Was that what that was? Or?
Yes, and I think that was. I don't know if it was sponsored by the state or was connected with, the Navy. I'm not sure.
Both ways, I think.
Yeah. Illinois, I know, was one of. Well, I don't know how many states, but they had both Army, Air Force, out at Midway, and a Navy, either ROTC program or Navy Reserve. And I just wonder how many people from Chicago or Cook County saw military service. There might have been certainly, 100,000s maybe.
Probably easily,
yeah. We had in our just in the town of Cicero, in Hawthorne, one neighborhood of the town of Cicero, in the field house, the Hawthorne. We have our own separate park district, the Hawthorne Park District, and they had behind glass the names of all the men from Hawthorne who served, and it filled one entire board, and they had to put an additional board up, and the names are very small. There are hundreds of names there. And this is one neighborhood of one town in one county in one state. And you realize how enormous World War II was.